Hello and welcome to the DM's Book Club. It's a podcast where we read about some of Dungeons & Dragons and discuss how we'd include it in our role-playing campaigns. I'm David, guest host for this session. And with me, I have the wonderful and talented Fiona.
Oh, wonderful and talented.
There was another Fiona, but we're stuck with you.
Oh, am I the better Fiona?
No, I'm reading my old notes.
Oh, how are you, David?
Well, I've just moved house. So I'm finally at the point now where there are less than a dozen boxes everywhere.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
And actual furniture.
Compared to that fake furniture you have dotted around.
Exactly. My fake make-believe chairs may have done fantastic work on my quads, but I was in serious pain. Now I have actual chairs. It's lovely. And how are you?
Oh, I'm very well. Work is work. I've been doing lots of editing. I've been doing lots of reading. And, I think we're just ticking along. It's getting into winter. The clocks have gone back. Had nice sleep. All the usuals. So.
Pretty much what we want. Yeah. Except for the whole going into winter thing. That's not fun.
For women, it's like, how many cardigans can I put on at the same time without looking silly? And the answer is 3.
Yeah, well, think of it. It's like just extra padding, isn't it?
Exactly. So you'll always be warm.
And we get to bring out the nice big coats.
Big coats. Have you got your big coat out then, David?
I do have my big coat out. Well, I say I have my big coat out. My big coat isn't actually that thermally efficient, but it looks fantastic.
Yeah, the sort of fashionista big coat of the North. I like those, yeah.
The long black coat, it's very matrixy. I enjoy it. Oh, that's an ancient reference. Oh, God.
Should I tell you what we're going to talk about today, David?
I would love you to tell me what we're going to talk about today.
So, big coats. No. So today, David, that's sort of a companion piece to our previous one, because last time you were on this podcast, you talked to us about paladins being the best sort of role-play class, or a really good one to start off with. Yeah. And I have decided to come back with a counter-argument and say that the best class to roleplay first, or play as your first character, is a barbarian. And so we're going to look at the barbarians and the 7 different paths that are currently out there for people to explore.
Okay. All right, then. That's a bold statement. The best class.
Yes.
Now, are we talking the best class for roleplay ability, the best class for new players? What?
I'm going to say for roleplay ability, but I mean, well, we've talked about this before, actually. When we've created characters, usually when we've got new players in our campaigns, we say, oh, do you prefer to like fight at range? Do you like magic, or do you like to be up close and personal? And if you're the sort of person that likes being up close and personal and dealing lots of damage and not too bothered about being hit, then barbarians are the way to go. And realistically, there are very few things mechanically you have to remember. Now, I know I just said that out loud because, as David knows, I forget things all the time when I play my barbarian.
There's so few things you have to remember. Her barbarian, Fiona, forgets everything all the time.
To be fair, one of the things I do forget is...
yourself.
I will. One of the things I do forget is a feat rather than an actual barbarian thing. But even then, once I remember that, like at least for one feat I have, 2 barbarian things go out of the window. Yeah. It's like there's only so much space in your brain.
The barbarian section of your brain. Not that the barbarian, and not that I'm calling it a stupid class.
Careful.
I actually quite like it.
Good.
The barbarian part of your brain, not that it requires that much information, it's still a tiny segment of your brain.
Exactly. And I would say, like, when you read it through, certainly in the player's handbook, again, like all the sort of official sort of original classes in the player's handbook, it is only 2 or 3 pages, and then it goes into more detail about the sort of the specialities, and they're called primal paths in the barbarian. Shall I give you a brief overview about what a barbarian is, David?
Please do. Imagine I'm just sitting down at my first D&D character sheet.
Yeah.
And I'm a bit like, I kind of, I'm a bit of a fan of Conan. The barbarian, not the show, not the talk show host.
Could you imagine if you made that faux pas? Right. You play a talk show barbarian. That would be really cool. Like your charisma is so high as a result.
I always thought, actually, no, that's later. But remind me to tell you my idea about a high intelligence barbarian.
I'm excited.
Right, okay, go on. I've just sat down.
Yeah.
I've got my blank character sheet in front of me. I'm about to play my first session of D&D. Why should I play a barbarian?
Realistically, barbarians can be boiled down to one thing, and that thing is rage.
I love it already.
They are defined by their rage. It's like it's more than an emotion for most people. We've all been in those situations, usually, in our day-to-day lives, when you feel a bit cross with someone, and that's a very British thing.
The British barbarian. I get a bit cross.
I get a little bit cross, a little bit a bit pissed off. For a barbarian, when they get angry, it is just something that drives them to do incredible, almost sort of superhuman things. So like the superhuman strength, superhuman sort of fierceness, and this sort of, it's just uncanny what they can become. So they have stuff like, when you see a barbarian, when you think of barbarian, like Conan was a very good example. You think of the Arnold Schwarzenegger CrossFit-esque sort of like Dorito-shaped body, the upside-down triangle with muscles. The
muscles
abs
have muscles.
Yeah, muscles have its own face, all that sort of thing. But also, it is described as someone who has uncanny reflexes, that they can they are prepared for the fight. Using their rage as it is, they can overcome surprise and all that sort of thing. And resilience is a big thing as well. They are hefty meat slabs. So like the muscles is great, but then they can take several hits and still not go down. And that can be quite frightening when you're fighting against someone and you just see, we've all been in those boss fights on Resident Evil, and you see somebody coming towards you, and you're shooting your guns, and you're running around, and they aren't going down, and you're like, I don't know what's wrong. Yeah, so essentially they are unbridled by fury. They are hefty meat slabs, and they're fucking great.
They are great. They are great. I'll give you that one.
And I think what is described about in the Player's Handbook, it says that a true barbarian is rare. And I think this is the thing that most people sort of forget about. It's like, oh, well, in the Forgotten Realms, or what is the difference between an adventurer and a minor character? And adventurers have a little bit of an edge. They're a little bit tougher. They're a little bit, have a bit of skill. Barbarians themselves as a class is actually quite rare. And I think if you were playing one, it talks about them being like the protectors of their people or the leaders of their clan, because they have been in wars. They go into fight to protect others, not themselves. They enjoy the fight, absolutely, but they do it because they feel this sort of loyalty. And that's what really got me, is like the idea of someone fights out of loyalty and is driven by that emotion. And so I just thought all of that was just a really cool, different way of thinking about a character that doesn't necessarily fight for money and doesn't necessarily fight for honor per se. It is more about out of loyalty and out of protecting others. And I just thought that's such a cool character concept.
Yeah.
It's just masked slightly by the fact that they are pretty bloodthirsty.
I fight to protect people, but I also scream a lot.
Yes. The one thing I really liked is that right at the end of this sort of like describing what barbarians are, to give this sort of concept, it talks about the reason why they go adventuring. They might be exiled from clans, or they might be, decide that they have to go and do something to protect their people. But it says some barbarians miss sort of the close-knit structures of their families and stuff, but eventually find themselves with new families within their adventuring party. And again, that idea of loyalty is that they are always willing to make new friends, and it's very rare, I think, you'd get a loner barbarian, because they wouldn't survive. They need to protect something, and I guess maybe that's when they turn evil or anything like that. They would fight by themselves to protect themselves. But the idea that they join a venturing party is like, well, you should go home, What do you mean I am home? Like, just this very stubborn-esque sort of like, you're my family. You need help. I'm here to help you. And that's what I like about it, is you can make it anything you want, but I just like that sort of version of it that is out of loyalty, and they're always going to find a home wherever they go. Which
I think is quite an interesting concept, especially because I think it's quite natural in D&D to have eventually, the adventuring party becomes the family of the adventurers. Obviously, they're all going to have their actual blood family somewhere, unless you're going super tragic with your backstory. That adventuring party does become the family. And I think it's quite an interesting idea that maybe, the barbarian the screamy, bloodthirsty, probably, let's be honest, not the greatest wisdom, intelligence, or charisma class will, always be focused on the family. They'll be the one, I think, that would embrace the idea of the adventuring party being a family before anyone else.
Absolutely.
Nice.
Yeah, and I think, like I said, you always think of barbarians stereotypically as, they're always ready to fight. They're always the ones that disrupt the negotiations and stuff. And I think that's not true. I think most barbarians are ready to fight. And whereas other times it's like, you've insulted our honor, you're going to hurt us, well, I fight for that. I don't think it's that at all. They know when to say stuff, but they know when to be intimidating. And, if something's not going their way, they're willing to stand up, even if it's uncomfortable for the rest of the party. But I think when you play a barbarian, that's still something to think of. You could go down I am completely cross all the time and no one understands my feelings. But that's so one note.
Yeah.
That it gets very sort of hogging the spotlight in a way, because you're always like, oh God, what's the barbarian going to do next? We're going to clear up after them. Whereas the barbarian, as we sort of said, it fights out of loyalty and stuff. It's something that should, in one part, help the sort of party stick together whilst being aggressive, and it sort of balances it out as sort of a weird sort of thing. Like you've got the aggressive but super lovable, caregiving person, and then the person that can talk or is diplomatic one. There's someone else who's just super nice. The other sort of cunning people, all that sort of thing. And I just think it's the aggressive caregiver is what I would call the barbarian class.
Yeah, it's like your mother hen that will break someone's face.
Absolutely, and it's unapologetically so as well.
Yeah. Although I have a question for you then.
Oh God. Okay.
So, given the last time that we spoke, when we were talking specifically about paladins, I made the point that I would hold it the biggest cardinal sin to have a paladin that isn't at least on the order part of the alignment.
Mm-hmm.
Barbarians.
Yes.
Where would you place them?
I think by their sort of nature, they are going to be somewhere chaotic for sure. I think a true barbarian would be chaotic neutral, so that it's up to the whims of what they want, and they can be influenced by falling in with the wrong crowd. Perhaps it wouldn't surprise me that you'd maybe recruit a couple of barbarians to be thieves guild like guards or anything like that, or I don't know, fantasy nightclub bouncers.
Yeah,
I definitely, for me, chaotic, because that's the thing, right? Because once they go into the rage, which we'll come to, when driven by emotion, it's very chaotic to the point where it's described in some of the primal passes. It's uncontrollable, and you get a different source for where it is. So I definitely think on the chaotic part, but I think I would say most barbarians I think you'd come into play with, if they're not going to be chaotic good, like I know I went for chaotic good for sort of my character just because I knew it was a good campaign. Ultimately we want the good people to win and stuff like that, whereas neutral means that you can choose it up to yourself, because I think it gets to a point where you go, actually this is too much for me as a barbarian, because I'm sure like they might want to split off and make other, if they've not been isolated from their people or anything like that, they might want to go back and maybe have to make the choice between the good of everyone and the good of their people as well. So I think chaotic on that scale, but anywhere in between the other scale.
I agree. I'd say they're definitely more of a chaotic class, which is interesting, especially considering some of their paths, which I think is a great time to start talking about those.
Sounds good.
Well, let's have a look. So, the Barbarian paths, we've obviously got, 7 of them in total?
7 in total.
Paths?
Yeah, which it actually feels like quite small compared to other classes, and actually only recently did the 2 playtest ones. So there is the Wild Soul one that's coming out in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything.
Yes.
And then the other one, she says, having a quick look.
Beast, isn't it?
Yes, Beast, which came out this year as Unearthed Arcana, which is it's interesting. But on the whole, looking at all the paths in general, it talks about we actually haven't really mentioned it. I keep talking about this word rage. But actually, rage. Yeah.
What is rage?
Rage. Basically, at level 1, for a bonus action, you can activate your superpower, which is raging. And basically, you're just really, really cross fast fighting. that's the best way to describe it. As a result, you get advantage on strength checks and saving throws. When you make an attack with a melee weapon, so if you're in close combat, you gain a bonus to damage using your strength. So obviously the stronger you are, the harder you hit, which makes sense. And the most important thing that I have come to learn in all of my D&D is that from level 1, when every time you activate rage, you are resistant to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage. Right from level 1. And that's incredible. Instantly,
that's incredible.
Your hit points are effectively doubled as a result. So if you have got very high constitution and you hit hard and you activate your rage at the beginning of battle, it's going to take twice as long to put your character in minor peril. Now, obviously, David, I did die really early on.
I was about to bring that up. Early levels, considering Barbarian's whole thing of, I rage, most of the damage, let's be honest, most of the damage you're going to take in your early levels is going to be non-magical slashing, bludgeoning, and piercing, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah.
Yes. Meaning that, we all know this thing of the first 5 levels are probably where your character is most likely to die, given that an errant critical is going to knock you on your ass.
Yes.
However, with that in mind, the Barbarian, perhaps, is the most durable and survivable for those first 5 levels. Wouldn't you say, Fiona?
Yes.
What did you say? It's very difficult as a Barbarian to die in those first 5 levels.
Yes. But I am an exception to the rules, as always.
You are the exception to the rule of the universe, and I love it.
Like you said, it's very rare, I think, for barbarians to die early on levels. I think it is a mixture of, if you are going to die, it is very poor rolls. Your other teammates... Bad situations. Like for me, for example, again, I've not really spoken about it on this podcast, but the first time my character did die, I was in the jaws of a giant crocodile underwater. And my other two...
It was chewing.
It was chewing. And unfortunately, obviously, yourself, you were wearing heavy armor, so you're desperately trying to swim down and you're like, oh God, drowning at the bottom of the pool. And Sam, bless him, as playing Blue, the bard, was like, I will entice out this creature with a sexy crocodile. And you're like, great.
There's quite a few things that I really loved. One was the sexy crocodile, and the other one was to make some more food as an illusion. And our DM very rightly pointed out that if you're in the middle of eating dinner and more dinner just appears, you're going to finish the dinner that you do have and then move on to the new food.
It was one of those things where I'd already accepted my fate because there was no way I could get out of it. But as we've talked about many times, it has put us on a path in our game, certainly for your character.
Oh God, yeah, it completely changed how my character did everything from that point. I had a plan of what I was going to do with my multi-classing and how that was going to work, and that went out of the window.
I'm glad I helped.
Yeah.
I think just to sort of finish that off though with the rage, a rage lasts for a minute. So it's 10 rounds.
A long time in D&D.
It's certainly very long in the early stages. I've yet to lose a rage whilst playing in combat. Whether I've either ended it early or I've been knocked unconscious. Those are the only times I've never gone through the whole 10 rounds and then had to reactivate it. So basically, you have your rage that lasts for a minute. It will end early if you're knocked unconscious, or if your turn ends and you haven't attacked a hostile creature and you take no damage the next turn, which is very useful because you could just run into the battle and go, oh, I wait. And usually you're a big target, so people do hit you and your rage keeps going.
Yeah.
And you can have this rage ability for a number of times per your level in Barbarian, which can get up to, I think it's the max you can get is 5, which is pretty good, and they reset on the long rest as well. So it's about usually, and we'll come on to stage, but we're going into combat. Once you're in there and stuff, it is about hitting as many things as you can and getting hit, because you can take that damage. And that's really good early levels. When you get up to higher levels, when suddenly you have to think about the environment, or you've got flying creatures that fucking go away, you know, it's an interesting one. And especially the thing it talks about, which I didn't realize until we started playing it, is that the extra damage you get from rage only works on a melee attack. So you have to be up close to hit them. You can't shoot.
Yeah.
You can't use arrows. You can't use javelins or anything like that.
Angrily fire an arrow.
Yeah, it's just throwing a javelin and it just hits the ground. You're like, well, I knew it. There's that great thing. There's that great thing we had recently where I think you guys were like, just hit it with a javelin, and I missed. And then our DM was like, you don't know even why you did that. And I was like, I know. Why did I do that? Stupid peer pressure.
It was like you were running towards something and you weren't going to reach it under any circumstances, and you were just going to end the turn without doing anything. And Sam and I are just going, you have javelins. Oh
yeah, it doesn't work.
I don't need them. I am range. Objectively, that's not true, is it?
I am range. But then the other things that do come up commonly in Barbarians, so you have stuff like reckless attack. So later on, once you've leveled up to that, I'll tell you, it's on your turn, before you do your first attack, you can decide whether or not you're going to recklessly attack all your attacks. And what that means is that all attack rolls that you do for that turn are made at advantage, because you were just like rushing in, like you are chaos. Unfortunately, that means you're leaving yourself open to attacks as well. So any attack rolls against you, whether it's ranged or melee, have advantage as well. So it is a give and take sort of thing. Ideally, you get advantage so that you're more likely to make a critical, but at the same time, they have more chance to get criticals on you and give you more damage as a result. It's one of my I think I recklessly attack every single time, because
it's odd when you don't.
When I don't, it is just to double check what's going on, and I go, oh, I know. Next turn,
you do your safety tap with the axe to test the defense. Oh, okay, yeah.
But other things they have as well, you've got the extra attack at level 5. That's pretty early on, so you can just attack twice. Extra movement, feral instinct, which means advantages on initiative rolls, which is great because that means you're really ready for battle. The new one that I'm starting to get to grips with is something called brutal critical, where basically means every time I roll a crit, I have an extra weapon die on top of that. So that increases further up the levels. So when I remember to use that, that's quite a few D12s, essentially, because I use a great axe.
D12s are satisfying to roll.
They are so good. And I think that's one of the reasons I did pick this class when I started out, is that it's the only class that uses D12s for hit die. And there is something satisfying seeing double digits on a hit die, and then you roll a 1 at the end, you're like, God damn it, what a waste. But the interesting one I have, so you have these rages and they power you through and stuff. There's stuff called like Relentless Rage, which I've just got myself for this character, where if I drop to 0 hit points and I don't die outright, I can make a Constitution saving throw, which Barbarians are very good in, and I can drop to 1 hit point instead if I pass it, and the DC is 10. Right. Now, during a battle, the DC goes up every time I use it, so it'll go to 15, 20, 25, etc. until it doesn't work anymore. But then if I have a long rest or short rest, it resets. So again, I could just keep powering through, just dropping ever so slightly. Your rage is so fierce, this persistent rage, so fierce, it only ends early if you fall unconscious or you choose to end it. So even if you don't take any damage or if you don't attack anyone, you keep that rage going. And then the sort of the final one, which I really, really love, is Primal Champion, where the line is, embodies the power of the wilds. Your con and strength increase by 4 to a max of 24.
That's insane.
Yeah. And obviously, again, if you've been doing your ability score improvements, then obviously you could have a really powerfully strong character and a really, fit, sort of not healthy, but a really, what's the word? Like just load of hit points essentially at the top of that. And you have your rage just keeps going. It is quite a visual sight, just seeing this someone who doesn't go down, who still hits hard, even when they're on 1 hit point. And I just thought that image, I was like,
it's something special, isn't it? Like you're literally too angry to stop.
Too angry to die, literally.
Yeah. Although that interestingly brings us on to the primal paths.
Yes.
And if you don't mind, I'd like us to start with one in particular, my personal favourite.
Okay, which one?
Path of the Zealot.
Ooh, the one right at the bottom of the list, because it's alphabetical. Exactly. So go on, why don't you tell us about the Zealot then?
The Zealot is kind of like if a barbarian and a paladin had a baby, but, the baby only then lived with the barbarian.
Yes.
It's weird in the sense that, we've got paladins that are very ordered, their gods are giving them powers, or, they're getting powers from their oath. Whereas Path of the Zealot lives by a very simple mantra: I am too angry to die.
Yes.
Which is just sensational. And I think if we're going to discuss the idea of a barbarian benefits as a role-playing class, I think the Path of the Zealot is probably one of the most interesting ones.
Definitely.
Because, it's taking us away from from the outside probably looks like quite a simple I rage, I hit things class, and more in a sense of, you now have divine fire or necrotic energy channeling through your weapon.
From the description of it, it says that some deities inspire their followers to pitch themselves into ferocious battle fury, and the zealot warriors, essentially. Then it talks about the gods being, they are mostly gods of combat, destruction, and violence, and whilst they are not all evil, very few of them are good. So it goes back to what we were talking about before, is like, where would we see it on the scale? And I think these ones is where you do pitch your you plant your flag saying, yes, actually, I'm going to play a more neutral or maybe even slightly evil character here, because again, it is talking about that you either fight for the side of the good or you fight for the side of evil. And one of the first things that comes up, which I'm sure took your eye, was Divine Fury. So on your weapon strikes, the first creature you hit on each turn takes extra damage equal to 1d6 half your barbarian level. And that's either radiant damage or necrotic damage. So you can have that proper sort of flavor there, and you have to pick that when you get that. You can't switch between them, because otherwise that would be chaotic.
That would be too chaotic.
There's a cool role-playing thing called the Warrior of the Gods, where your soul is marked for endless battle, which is such a cool phrase.
That's so metal.
And this is the thing with all the barbarian paths. You just look at them and you go, this is so metal. You could see this happening on stage at a concert or anything like that. But basically, this means that any spell, such as like Raise the Dead or even probably Resurrection, I would say, or True Resurrection or anything like that, that has the sole purpose of restoring you specifically to life, the caster does not need any material components. And this is the thing, I appreciate that this might not sound like really big to anyone who doesn't play D&D a lot, or your campaigns are maybe a little lower level or stuff like that, but we've been in several scenarios where our characters have died and we brought them back, and it is a very expensive business.
It is not cheap.
I mean,
True Resurrection cost, is it like 10,000 or something?
A lot of gold, or the material components. Like, so for example, this spoiler: the second time I died, thankfully in quotation marks, but compared to the first time, where the characters didn't have to suddenly make a pact with a random Feywild god that changed the whole campaign. They were in a city with a temple, and there are people that can help with that sort of thing. But again, the cost is so significant.
Still, it was a real bite into the wallet.
But then you've got, with the Path of the Zealot, you've got fanatical focus. If you fail a saving throw, for whatever reason, whilst you're raging, you just re-roll it and use a new roll. That's once per rage. So this is the thing, you could end your rage and restart it and keep going, because you have up to, I think you have up to 5, and it's such a wasteful thing. But if you need to make those saving throws, you can do it. You've got Zealous Presence, where, for a bonus action, you unleash a battle cry infused with divine energy, and up to 10 creatures of your choice have advantage on attack rolls and saving throws to the start of your next turn, and that's once per long rest. So that's an incredible, if you're starting off the fight, just screaming, and then all your allies then have advantage on their first turn.
Can you imagine if that was linked to if you sort of had a multi-class of a paladin and a Path of the Zealot barbarian, because then you would have all the benefits to saving throws that paladins give their team, and then it's also an advantage.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane. And then the final one, which I do think is like the most metal thing I've ever read, the Rage Beyond Death feature, where essentially divine power fuels your rage and allows you to shrug off fatal blows. So, having 0 hit points does not knock you down unconscious. You still make death saving throws and suffer normal consequences of taking damage whilst you would be. However, if you were going to die due to failing death, you don't die until your rage ends. And then when the rage ends, you only die if you have 0 hit points. So having that combined with like the previous ones of relentless rage and all this sort of thing, you could still power through for another couple of rounds of combat. And then bonus action, swig a healing potion, and I've defeated death once more.
Yeah, I think we should petition all the lovely people at D&D to just rename that literally Too Angry to Die.
Unofficial, Too Angry to Die.
Because that's amazing and ridiculous in every sense of the word.
It feels very Thor, at the end of Ragnarok, when he's just powering down, he's lost an eye. And it just, that vision of it is what I see every time I read Path of the Zealot. It is just so cool as a concept.
Such an interesting concept. Now, let's take it to something a little bit more basic. What we think of, when you first imagine a barbarian, the first thing that comes into your mind, what would you say is the archetype, the first thing that you picture in your head when you hear barbarian?
So I'm assuming you are referring to Berserker.
Indeed, I am.
So in the player's handbook, you have 2 paths to choose from. When this was starting off in early 2014, you have the path of the Berserker and the totem warrior one, which we'll come into in a second. So Berserker is essentially a rage is a means to an end, and that end is violence.
You know what? Whoever writes the Barbarian is doing a great job because they are nailing the wording.
I think this is the most, not even obvious, but I think the most traditional Barbarian we usually see is this kind of Barbarian and stuff. This, for example, this is Grog spilled from Critical Role.
Yeah.
You are just fury incarnate. Like, you thrill yourself in the chaos of battle, regardless of your own health and well-being, and probably to the ones of the people around you as well, to an extent. I'd say the unique thing about Berserkers is the frenzy. So when you go into a rage, you can choose to make it a frenzied rage. And for the duration of that, you can make a single melee attack weapon as a bonus action on each turns after you've started your rage. And then once your rage ends, to compensate for that, you have 1 level of exhaustion. So bear in mind that you get this, you choose your path at level 3. So you could choose to go into a frenzied rage and have technically 2 attacks before you get your additional attack at level 5.
Yeah.
So instantly your damage output is going up quite significantly. And then at the end of a fight, you have 1 level of exhaustion. That's fine. That's just disadvantage on ability checks. You've got the other party to do that for you. You're just here to fight,
True, yeah. But that's the thing. I feel that Berserker, especially with this frenzied rage, I think it takes more than it gives.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, of all the paths, very clear about this. Zealot's my favorite. If I was going to play a barbarian, I would absolutely play a Zealot, or maybe one of the other ones, which we'll get to later. But I would avoid Berserker.
Why is that, would you say?
It's that whole frenzied rage taking the point of exhaustion, because sometimes, as we've learned in our campaign, you can't exactly get a long rest when you want to.
Oh. Yes, and that's true.
So it seems you are getting a lot, because eventually it's 3 attacks in a turn, which is amazing. And, I know that the Barbarian, for a lot of instances, maybe doesn't make the most use of the bonus action, but
yeah, true.
In the times where you can make use of it, like, for instance, let's say that you taken Great Weapon Master, because why wouldn't you as a barbarian?
Why wouldn't you?
The best feat you can have. That was tough. The question then becomes, is it worth not only sacrificing your bonus action for a second attack that you might be able to get anyway, or is that worth sacrificing that and then you get this exhaustion penalty?
It's true. I think, certainly with Berserker, it is definitely made for how much damage can I deal out with, in a round quickly and to the point. So because this is, if you imagine pairing this up with brutal critical right at the end, so you get a crit and up to like extra free weapon die on top of that, and then you get another attack, and then there's also right at the end you've got retaliation. So that is when you take damage from a creature within 5 feet of you, you can use your reaction, which is one a turn, to make another attack against them. So you are just dealing out damage constantly, and presumably hoping that your friends will pick you up if you fall down. Like, this is purely a damage dealing class, and also it has other things as well, like mindless rage, so you can't be charmed or frightened if you go into a rage, which is super useful if you're fighting against creatures, say like a dragon or anything like that has a frightful presence.
Also you're too angry for fear.
You're like, I've stared death in the face and this is not where I die, etc. There's the other one I find interesting called Intimidating Presence, and it'll be interesting to see what you think of this one. So you can use an action yourself to frighten someone by doing something that, like telling people to go away or something like that. So it's an action, but also it very much depends on intimidation itself. It's the modifier for it is actually based in charisma. And I know in Critical Role, they changed that rule slightly so that intimidation or any intimidation checks or anything is based more on strength rather than charisma. Because in the quick build, certainly for Barbarians, it says, put your highest value dice rolls in strength and constitution. Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah. But then sometimes that means that your charisma, which is used for scaring things, everything like that, is probably not as high as you want it to be. And I always thought that was interesting that you're using something, intimidating person is a charisma type thing, where we would see it as something like, I'm trying to persuade them, rather than like a show of strength, or I don't know, maybe it's a different skill altogether.
It's a fair point. I've always understood charisma as kind of not exactly like how persuasive you are. I mean, yes, I know that's a huge part of it, but more the charisma stat itself to be the strength of your personality. Because I think we have this misconception that high charisma characters are like really attractive and low charisma characters are hideously ugly. I would say it's more like the difference between Life of the Party and Wallflower.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Okay. But you make a very good point. That's off topic. You make a very good point about charisma, especially with intimidation, because as a barbarian, you've got 3 stats that you're going to prioritize and 3 that you're just going to ignore. Like you want strength to be 20 as soon as you can get it. Then, given the amount of punishment you're going to take as de facto party tank, you want constitution to be as high as you can get. And then, hey, you may as well just slap some in dexterity. Yeah. Throw that initiative higher, or maybe just start taking some feats that are going to be good, but those 3 are going to be your priority. It seems to me a little counterproductive to have a stat for a single ability for one part of one path that just takes away from that.
Definitely. Maybe it's just the role-playing aspect of it. But I guess if you think about it with, say, Warlock, for example, so I can actually imagine, because obviously that's their spell modifier is using charisma. So that analogy you have of like Life of the Party or the Wallflower thing, I think that's quite interesting, because I'd be like, well, yeah, I guess like warlocks can be like that. But then if you think of like wizards or sorcerers, they are more sort of, is it both of them are intelligence based, or is
wizards intelligence, sorcerers charisma?
Oh, it's charisma. There you go. So it's like, it's, I don't know if that, I like that analogy, but I don't know if it, because I always assume charisma is just embodied in spell casting classes, because it is about, like you said, the sort of performance of it, I guess, in a way, or being confident enough with it. So seeing it pop up here I find it is interesting, and like you said, it takes away from, I guess, because you kind of nicely put in the stats. So you got the 3 stats which are sort of to do with body. So you got your strength, dexterity, and constitution, and then you got the 3 other stats which are sort of more psychological, mental sort of way. So you got your charisma, I was gonna say uniqueness, nerve, and talent, which is RuPaul's Drag Race, but we won't do that.
That's a completely different one. Although RuPaul's D&D would be very interesting.
Yeah, so this is very stereotypical. I must kill and the most points, etc. That's what the berserker is essentially. It is definitely someone who loves to rage and loves dishing out all the damage and stuff in battle, and isn't too fussed about themselves, essentially.
And we talked a lot about barbarians sort of existing in tribes. You spoke a lot about them being very sort of prominent figures in tribes and so on. And that leads us quite sort of naturally onto the other path that's included in the player's handbook.
Yes.
Tell us a bit about that one.
So I will say this now, is like, I feel like this sort of path in general, so it's called the Path of the Totem Warrior.
Yes.
And clearly it takes a lot of inspiration from sort of Native American and any sort of culture that involves spirit animals, because it talks about, you take on a spiritual journey and you accept one of these sort of spectral sort of animals, or the sort of the embodiment of this thing as your guide and protector and inspiration. I have certain things about that being like, it's not really something to do, but I think as long as you flavor it in a way that's sensible and not making it it's a mysterious thing, and like maybe do a little bit of research for this one. That's why I feel a lot of people prefer going for the straight damage one rather than the spiritual aspects of Barbarians anyway, from what I've seen on streams. There is something about saying spirit animals, and you hear Valley Girls going, oh, well, that's my spirit animal. And you're like, it is something that is a lot more. It is something that is sort of like a connection between you and the beyond, essentially. That's what I like to see it as. And it manifests itself as these sort of different wild animals, essentially. So I prefer to say it like that rather than it's a spirit animal. But essentially it is that it's an interesting thing, I guess, because we don't necessarily see barbarians as being in tune with the natural world, but here they are. They sort of gain the ability to cast beast sense and speak with animals. So you can communicate with animals to a certain degree and have that affinity, I guess, with whatever totem you choose. There is 5 different animals that you can be akin to. You've got bear, eagle, elk, tiger, and wolf. I just feel like it's quick, put tiger in there. Which it just
tiger
feel like
does seem a little tacked on, doesn't it?
It does rather. I feel like so each of them have different sort of elements to them. So bear is more resistance to all types of damage,
which is insane.
And that's at level 3 as well.
That's insane. The weakness of barbarians, isn't it? If you want to take a barbarian down, hit them with spells. Yeah,
and you get resistance to all damage except psychic damage, which very rarely do you have those sort of spells unless they're a bit higher up. If it's a mind flayer or any sort of things to do with warping the mind. So that's really interesting. Another thing with bears is that your carrying capacity is doubled, and you have advantage on pushing, pulling, lifting, breaking objects, which I know may not seem important in battle, but if you're trying to get out of a room and you're trying to carry treasure and you're trying to break all the things, I mean, that's pretty cool.
If you've ever seen in Star Wars and the trash compactor's coming towards you, you want the barbarian on the wall.
And then the final one of the bear, totemic attunement, I think that's how you pronounce it, but any creature within 5 feet of you has disadvantage on attack rolls against any other targets except yourself or another character that has this feat. Obviously they're immune to this if they can't see or hear you, or if they can't be frightened. But that idea that they have to be fixated on you. So again, you've got that resistance to every damage. You're a beefy bear. You can carry stuff. But then if they try to attack anyone else when you're really close to them, that's disadvantage because you're the biggest threat is right in front of you. So you have this sort of towering, aggressive, even bear. It does talk about you could take on aspects of bestial form in a way. So you are thicker skinned, you may be a bit more hairy if you take a bear. Your eyes are better as an eagle, all that sort of thing. So
looking at all of them,
yes,
I do like the Path of the Totem Warrior, but looking at all of them, I think 9 times out of 10, despite some of the things quite good, like Tiger gives you some extra proficiencies at one point, there's loads of reasons to pick the other ones, but for the life of me, 9 times out of 10, I know it. I would always pick bear and just go.
So.
Because it takes you from de facto party tank to you're the thing that holds the line. You are the line.
You are literally Hodor, essentially.
Yeah.
I feel like the other ones are quite cool. Eagle's pretty cool, that other creatures have disadvantage on opportunity attacks against you, and you can use a dash action as a bonus action.
Yeah.
You could see up to 1 mile away with no difficulty. Imagine. What? So that's pretty cool. And then what's the other one for Eagles? Oh, you could have a flying speed equal to your walking speed, but then in brackets it says, but only in short bursts. You can't just constantly fly. You have to that would be, again, I think Eagle is overlooked, I think, as a result of that, because I feel it's not, with the bear one, it's very here is the physicalness. And you're like, yes, barbarians, that makes sense. But I think eagle and elk to an extent as well, because elk is about speed, and you can walk a bit faster, you can travel pace is doubled, and everyone in your party is doubled as well. And you can knock people prone and give them bludgeoning damage because you're just so bloody hulking. I think those two are pretty good.
Completely agree. It's quite an interesting one, but I've got to say, for me, as much as I enjoy the Totem Warrior, and I'm not going to slate it as much as I slate Berserker, for me, it's a bit samey.
Yes.
It's kind of, you pick what you're doing. If Berserker is just, I'm pumping out the damage, although it has its aspects, Totem Warrior just doesn't feel like it plays around with some of the more interesting aspects of the class, be it both in terms of mechanics and role playability.
Yeah. Again, I have the feeling that they wrote it assuming that people would buy into the stereotypes of you need to do some role playing about like spirit animals, etc. And I think more people nowadays are moving away from that. It'll be really interesting to see, actually, because obviously with the whole overhaul of Wizards just now about them, like, I don't know if you know, so they're reissuing Curse of Strahd just now, a mixture because it's Halloween, but also they're rewriting certain elements in it that aren't appropriate anymore or culturally insensitive. And I wonder if this is going to happen for the Totem Warrior, because I feel like there is still like that sort of stigma about just appropriating spirit animals in general. So I wonder if they'll change the wording of it slightly in future things, and maybe then as a result more people will use it. And the other thing I will say, sorry, for flavor-wise, you don't have to necessarily say, oh, it's a wolf. I see a wolf all the time. It doesn't have to be that as your Totem Warrior piece. You can describe it to be a fox, but it takes on the aspects of the wolf, etc. So you can pick one and then describe it to be completely different animals. It's a bit like a Patronus, which I think would be a better way of describing spirit damage in general.
Yeah, so. I agree. Moving on to one of the other ones.
Yes.
Now, I happen to know, and I've got so much love for this path, but my love for it pales in comparison to yours.
Yes.
Given you've been playing it for 2 years now.
Yes.
But Fiona.
Yes.
I would very much like you to tell me about probably one of the more interesting ones in the sense of how diverse it is, how unique it is, the sort of role playability of it as well. Tell me about the Path of the Storm Herald.
Oh, I'm so glad you asked, David. So Storm Herald is one of the paths that came in with Xanathar's Guide to Everything.
Best thing
and
ever.
It is, I mean, the book itself...
oh my God, Swashbuckler, Storm Herald, Hexblade.
Basically improves upon all, it adds so much to the player's handbook. I think both of you, I will probably agree, like, if there's any book you want to add to the player's handbook, it definitely would be Xanathar's. And presumably, well, with Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, that's going to build upon that as well when that comes out. But so Storm Herald. So we've talked about barbarians being like full of bloody rage and giving out all the damage. We've talked about a bit more spirituality type ones with Totem Warrior, etc., and Zealot to an extent. We've talked about the sort of religion side of it. David, what's more angry than a storm?
I mean, there you go. There you go.
Yeah, the true Thor class, essentially.
There are no words. Yeah, if you want to play Thor, Storm Herald.
It is literally Storm Herald. So their rage grants them superior strength, durability, and speed, but they learn to transform that rage into a mantle of primal magic that swirls about them. So instantly, you look cool.
Yeah.
But you tap into the force of nature to create these magical, powerful effects. And it's just, again, there's the image of people flying through storms, like being surrounded by the storm. And it's just that emotion, it really connects on such a visual level, and I just love it for that. But interestingly, there was a line in it that I must have missed when I first read it. It goes, typically, elite champions who are Storm Heralds train alongside druids and rangers and others who have sworn to protect nature. I don't see it as a protecting nature at all thing. I see the Storm Herald as you are using the storm in a sense, but like these sort of the different elements, and they're coming together to create this tension. You feel it as well in the air. Like we had it in the summer when it was so hot. You knew a storm was coming. You could feel it in the air. Like it's going to break anytime soon. So using that sort of feeling and then just exploding in a rage is it's the best feeling in the world.
So why is it that you chose Path of the Storm Herald?
So interestingly enough, when Storm Herald came out about 3 years ago now, I think, a lot of streams started using Storm Herald Barbarians, and they've done it in very different ways. So again, I'm sure loads of people have listened to sort of Critical Role. In the latest season, Ashley Johnson of Last of Us fame, she plays a Barbarian, Storm Herald, Asimar Barbarian, Storm Herald. And then on another show, there's another player who plays a Storm Herald Barbarian, like a Wild Elf Storm Barbarian. And they played them so differently. In Critical Role, it is very sort of like very stormy, moody teenager at times, like, oh, I look out to the storm, I must go. And that unsureness and that having this sort of the rage bubble between it. And then on the High Rollers one, the character there is just rude and abrasive, and it's just like, why aren't we doing these things? This is just terrible. I hate this. And so it is a real balance between the two to see these different characters. And I thought, what would be great is that if we could have a character in the middle, but slightly more, maybe not persuasive, but willing to listen to other people. Is also moody, but a more well-rounded character. And I think even then I was like, Storm Herald sounds still cool. I'm still going to use Storm Herald.
I was going to say, willing to listen to other people. Are we still talking about your Barbarian?
Yes, I do. I listen. I do listen. Just not to all of the words, but I listen to some of them.
Right, yeah. Absolutely. You've got 3 aspects, don't you? Which is quite interesting. We've got the desert, we've got the sea, and we've got the tundra.
Yes. And I will say this now, David. I only just realised that tundra meant ice.
What did you think it meant?
I generally thought it was a different type of desert.
That silence is me rolling my eyes.
Yes, unfortunately so. So as David has said, there are sort of 3 different sort of environment choices that you can have when you're choosing what kind of Storm Herald you want to be. So the desert one is all about flame and fire and stuff. And that's pretty cool, actually, because, like, you know, when you activate your rage, you have this aura that goes around you within 10 feet. And when you have the desert storm aura, things take fire damage every time they're in it and every time you activate it, which increases over time. The tundra one is different. It's a bit more protective, which I find was really interesting. When you activate it, each creature of your choice gains 2 temporary hit points as the sort of ice sort of surrounds them and encase them against any attacks and stuff like that. And that too increases over time. And then finally, the one that everyone takes, I've got to be honest, it's not unique in any sense, but I love it, is the Sea Storm Aura, where basically you choose a target within your 10 feet aura. They make a dexterity saving throw or take 1d6 lightning damage, and that increases as it goes up as well. And I feel like this is my gripe with this sort of Storm Herald. It develops over several levels. So you get up to, I think it's at least 4d6 or 5d6 in terms of lightning damage when you get to level 20. And the same with sort of fire damage and stuff like it goes up eventually. But I feel like 2 points of fire damage early on or 2 points of temporary hit points is a bit crap. I think you either give them a dice roll or you give them 5 and then it increases by d6 each time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it does seem a little lackluster. Because I know in our campaign, you and our DM discussed how you can change that. You know, how you can make it a little bit more impressive, because what essentially amounts to a bog standard simplest level fireball is a level 20 thing. I mean, level 20 is demigod level. And considering the other stuff that certain other classes can do, like, well, I mean, what is it? Rogues just break the fabric of reality. They're that lucky and insane things. It feels a little lackluster.
I think it may be because they're expecting you to do a lot of damage anyway. But I think certainly with the Tundra one, where it's a very more protective storm aura type thing, it feels very odd that it's only like, at third level.
6 hit points at 20th level. Yeah,
it's a bit like, there's no point. There are other spells that can do that, you know. So it feels like I would put it as either a D6 and then you increase it to maybe by dice size. So maybe have it like a 1d6, 1d8, 1d10, 1d12, like hit points perhaps, which I know is not much, but then it's at least better than, have some six. It's a bit like the joke with like bardic inspiration when they get to high levels. Is, here, have some inspiration. Oh no, I've already hit it. Okay. I try to help, and that's what
I'm
it
helping.
I'm helping. That's all great. And then we go on to Storm Soul. So that was Storm's aura. Storm Soul grants benefits when either your aura isn't active, so when you're not being angry all the time. For the Desert Storm Soul, you have resistance to fire damage. That's pretty damn cool.
That is cool.
And you don't suffer effects of extreme heat. And you have an action to just set a flammable object on fire. So again, very metal. You just sat there really annoyed and you just go, burn up little bits of waste paper baskets as you're waiting for the next mission.
You're the worst thing ever to lantern shops.
The Tundra one, you gain cold resistance and don't suffer the effects of extreme cold. And you can touch water and turn it into 5 feet cubed of ice. Like those two, whilst they are very specific, those two would have been very handy for us in our campaign.
Yeah, yes, they would.
And what's interesting as well, which again, I didn't speak about, but in Storm Herald stuff, every time you level up, you can change what environment you have as your effect. And I always keep it to the sea just because it fits very thematically. Because could you imagine I wake up one day and I go, fire? It's like, no, that's the whole story. Go on, Fiona. It's like, no, fire.
No, fire.
And the sea, you get resistance to lightning, which makes sense. But you can breathe underwater and gain a swim speed of 30 feet, which again, very environment specific, but again, very, very useful. We've got also Shielding Storm, which means that creatures in your storm get resistance to your storm's aura and stuff like that. So for us, we would get lightning resistance, but it is very unlikely we meet anything with lightning resistance now. But maybe next time, if I change it to fire or I change it to ice, that would be helpful.
Completely derail all of Ryan's plans by changing such a huge way. And then we've got the last one at level 14, haven't we?
I cannot wait to get this. David, it's gonna be so great. So, Raging Storm, it's called. The power of the storm you channel grows mightier and lashes out at your foes. So I'm like, oh yeah. So for Desert, immediately after a creature hits you with an attack, you can use your reaction to force that creature to make a dex save, and on a fail, it takes fire damage equal to half your Barbarian level. So obviously level 14, that's going to be 7 fire damage straight off.
All right,
which is not bad, and obviously that gets up to 10 fire damage. Again, it all helps. You're damaging it every single turn. Tundra, you choose one creature in your aura, and it must succeed on a strength saving throw, or its speed is reduced to 0 as magical frost covers it. That's pretty cool. Again, it stops people running away, but it also stops them running towards you, and so that other people can have can attack it from range, perhaps. It depends on how high level the encounter is, perhaps, because again, it's all strength saving throws and stuff, or dex saving throws. They may have very good strength or dex, but again, it's very useful to have in a fight. But then, the Sea Raging Storm, you use reaction to make a creature make a strength saving throw, and it is knocked prone on a failed save. It's like, right, you're down, and now I get to hit you twice.
Amazing. Yeah, because you would. Because it's a reaction, you can choose when you're going to do it.
Yeah.
There's no stopping you from just going, okay, before I make my attacks, make a strength save. And
exactly
then
that.
You don't even need to do a reckless attack or anything like that.
Exactly that. It is just, I feel like I know I chose C.
Yeah.
See as the sort of Storm's aura thing because I'd seen it played so differently with 2 different ways. I mean, sure, the other 2, probably I think the Ice Tundra one would be actually really cool as well. It's definitely a more protective one to do. Like fire is fire. Like, you set things on fire, it's great. But I feel like the Tundra one is I think that would be a really cool idea to see on screen at some point, but I don't know whether. I think the idea of the sea adding more damage and looking super cool and metal is the thing that drives people away. Drives 2 even, so yeah.
Absolutely. I think that I would make one change
to
Storm Herald if I could.
What?
I would say that, like Path of the Zealot, where you pick your damage type at the start and you stick with it, I would have it like that. As in, you've chosen your aspect of nature, kind of, and that's where you get your power from.
Definitely. It makes total sense too. It was just interesting to see that, you could change up, presumably to let people know that, you chose fire. Well, maybe you want to change to sea.
I'm aware that we are actually getting through our time quicker than we
I know.
So I think we've probably got time for one more.
Okay.
And I think we should discuss one which I think has the greatest role playability of, I'm going to go with greatest role playability of most subclasses in all of D&D.
Ooh, I'm intrigued. Which one?
It's quite new. It's something that's quite interesting and quite thematic, given that we're so close to Halloween. I, of course, am talking about the Beast.
The Beast. Beast. So the Beast is an Unearthed Arcana playtested one, which came out earlier this year. So David, do you want to give us a little teaser? What is the Beast Primal Path?
Beast Primal Path. This one is so different, and that's what first really excited me about it. If I wanted to have a Zealot, I would definitely have a Beast Barbarian. Now, these Barbarians who walk the path of the Beast, they draw their rage from this bestial spark burning within their soul. The Beast howls to be released and bursts forth in the throes of rage. Those who tread this path might be inhabited by primal spirit or descended from shapeshifters. You can choose the origin of your feral might or determine it randomly. Now, I think that's really interesting. However, I think what a fantastic sort of roleplay decision would be, have that, and even though it would be, mechanically speaking, an absolute pain to do, have a character that's struggling to contain lycanthropy.
Ooh, interesting.
Because, it's the whole thing of you are constantly wrestling with the beast inside, which is brilliant. I mean, one of the things for the origin of the beast is one of your parents is a lycanthrope. You've inherited some of the curse. Loads of interesting things, like whether or not it's a fae, whether or not you're descended from a legendary druid, or an ancient animal spirit dwelling within you. We're going back to animal spirits again. But I just love it.
I don't know how much you've read into Eberron at all, if at all, but there is a race in there called Shifters, which is very similar to this, whereby somewhere along their sort of ancestry line, there is the mixture of sort of the blood, and they could take on the form or slight forms of wolf or bears or anything like that. So I instantly got ideas of this. So I guess this is their version of putting a sort of a beast subclass, a shifter subclass into different things if you didn't want to necessarily be that. And it is fascinating. It's that sort of thing where, I'm sure you're going to say in detail, but when you are raging, you transform slightly into this beast in a way, but you're not a full lycanthrope. You're not a werewolf. You're not a werebear or a were-rat or anything like that.
It's kind of flirting with it, isn't it? There's an aspect of that living inside you, and that's why I think it's the greatest roleplay class, because you have this option to what do you do with that? Is it this whole thing of, this is something that you welcome? Is this something that you're fighting against? How do you feel about this? As opposed to say, and I'm just, because I keep just laying into it today, as opposed to say Berserker, that is just more anger on top of my anger, please.
I mean, that is a very fair point. But what's cool about the Beast is that it gives you sort of, again, three sort of options to transform into. When you first get it, you have your bite, so you get a snout, or mandibles. Holy shit, yeah, I want mandibles.
You've just got mandibles. How freaky is that going to be? If you've been traveling, you're level 3, so you've been traveling for a little bit of time. You've kind of just figured the person out, and then they grow mandibles.
He's just, don't look at me! Don't look at me! Oh, yes, you have that. You've got claws, because you want to do a Zoidberg type thing. That sounds good. The thing with that as well, when you grow claws, it's a d6 to hit with your claws, but means you can attack twice if you use your claw action, which again, useful at level 3. And then a tail.
A tail. Congratulations. Here's a tail.
And this tail it's no ordinary tail. It's a proper horrific, I can only imagine it's just a horrific tail, which is 10 feet, because it's got a reach property, and 1d12 damage. And you're get those d12s back in, just whip it around.
Here's the thing. It's 1d12 piercing damage. I'm just imagining a tail that's essentially a spike.
Pretty much. I think that's true.
It's not even like you just slap people with it. You pierce.
Because instantly I'm I feel like tail, you're yes, but I think the bite is the one that most people would go for, because not only is it a 1d8 of damage, that's pretty good, you bite, you're close combat, fine, but then you regain hit points equal to your con mod. That's ridiculously helpful. You're come here, life force, blah, 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 mandibles.
Yeah, it's almost vampiric, isn't it?
And then later on, you get Bestial Soul, which causes your natural weapons to count as magical weapons. And it's like, because you're like, well, who's going to go for this class? Because, you know, by the time you hit something that has resistance to bludgeoning and slashing and piercing damage, oh no, this is magic. You know, mandibles come out like little glowy things.
You know, your great axe is all lovely and everything, but that's a devil and it's not silvered. Just bite it with your mandibles or whatever, mandible it or whatever they do.
Could you imagine like doing that, like the big bad evil like dragon at the end is like, come here, I'm gonna bite your kneecaps. Like,
yeah, because you start getting better at things like climbing, leap,
your jumps,
staying distance.
Swimming, breathing underwater. So all these things that have appeared in other places. So swimming, obviously, with Storm Herald, climb speed, but no need to check, and you can go upside down. That is incredibly useful, certainly in like obviously traditional dungeon settings in general, but like urban settings where you're running up and down like the walls of a town, like trying to chase someone. That's pretty good. Yeah, parkour, I think, is what I call the jumping ones. Like parkour.
I'm so glad that this didn't exist, because the idea of you during our Monday sessions yelling parkour every time you jump would drive me to insanity.
I don't know. I think I'd still do it. Like,
oh yeah,
parkour. You're not going anywhere. Oh, parkour.
No, that's a bad Aubrey.
Parkour.
And then we've got Infectious Fury. It's a creature with your natural weapons. You can curse it with a rabid fury. Amazing.
Just either they must use its reaction to hit another creature. I assume it's of your choosing. Oh yeah, it's another creature of your choice that it can see, which I think is an interesting one, because I guess you're like, oh, it needs to hit back on like the leader or something like that. Presumably. Yeah. But I find this interesting. Quite a lot of these phrasing of it says another creature rather than, and then it will say a creature that is hostile to you. So in effect, you could get this creature to hit one of your allies. Presumably, if that activates maybe a spell of theirs or an effect of theirs, that they get something. I don't know. I thought that was an interesting one. But then the other alternative is that they even take that reaction, or they must take 2d12 psychic damage. I'm like, oh yeah, more d12s. That sounds like the thing I'd do.
That's what this class needs, more d12s.
More d12s.
And finally, we get to Call of the Hunt. Walk me through this one, because this is a big one.
It's the idea that you are, again, spreading this fury throughout your sort of allies. You choose a number of willing creatures that you can see within 30 feet, equal to your con modifier. I always like that. It's like, rather than a flavorful thing, it's like, no, it's up to this much. And they gain reckless attack as a feature, and then they gain on any advantage on saving throws against being frightened. You say this to your allies that you have reckless attack now. They can choose to accept it or not. And for every person that does accept it, you gain 5 temporary hit points. And you can use this as many times equal to your con modifier, and then you regain all those uses on a long rest. But my God, as you know, I use advantage reckless attack all the time. Imagine if the whole party could do that all the time.
It's like loaning your party a class feature. It's amazing. It's like, if Paladins made it so everyone else could have a round of smites, or, if the Sorcerer made it so everyone else could just really stealthily cast something, or, sharing that super unique thing, even if it's just for the one round, brilliant. And so unique. It's not something I've quite encountered before.
I think it's the only time I've seen you give something to another person. Like we've had classes like the Bard there's a certain level where they can take spells off another class and stuff like that. And that's them taking it rather than you giving something and you getting something in return. And again, it's 5 temporary hit points, which might not be much. But, if you've got a high con modifier, if it's like +5, and then you've got all 5 people say, yes, please. And then you go, okay, that's 25.
Yeah.
It's not to be sniffed at. On top of
at all.
Being a barbarian as well, you're going to have probably triple digit health as well. It all adds up. So
that idea of giving something to the party kind of goes back to what we were saying at the very start, where, the barbarian is the type to, like they make the adventuring party their family. Mm-hmm. So, which is why I think Path of the Beast is probably, in my opinion, going to be one of the quintessential barbarian paths, because it very much plays into what you were saying. This is your family. You are giving them your strength. and in return, they're strengthening you.
Obviously, we've run out of time to go through the Ancestral Guardians and or the Wild Magic one, which I think would be fucking hilarious. The Wild Soul, where essentially, I'll break it down, is that every time you go into a raid, you roll on the Wild Magic table that they provide. And I'll tell you my favorite line from that one. It's like, appear creatures, a bit like Ancestral Guardians, the creatures appear in your space which look like flumps. And if you've ever seen a picture of a flump, it is basically like a cotton candy jellyfish. And then they scarper in all directions. And at the end of their turn, they explode. The vision is incredible.
That's amazing.
I mean, they've got other sort of like accounts that you give force damage, you do all this thing. But I just love the idea that you appear. Flumps is my deal. So that's going to come out in Tasha's Cauldron and everything. I'm looking forward to having a look at that and going, you know how they say like, oh, what would you do? Like, you know, because you could do like a one shot full of bards. I think a one shot full of barbarians and just having a whole lot of stuff come at them, and you have to have a flump, and then just
Brilliant. It just strikes me as, you know, flumps going out and then exploding everywhere is just things dying to your fabulousness. Before we completely wrap it up, what are your sort of closing remarks on the Barbarian film?
Basically, do it. No, I am definitely biased because obviously I've played one for 2 years. There's definitely something to be said about Barbarians, is that if you are one of those people who likes to keep things simple and you like, I want to do a decent amount of damage, I don't mind getting hit. I don't mind being the one that rushes in and stuff like that. Barbarians are the things for you. And I feel like there is more to them than the sort of the meat sack, maybe the one that's low intelligence, etc. As we sort of talked about, there's so many different ways you can go for it role-playing wise.
Yeah.
And I think for me, the most important for that part is that Barbarians may seem like horrific bullies at times and maybe like aggressive, but all they want really is a good family, and they act out of loyalty, and they just want to be loved.
Oh, very quickly.
Yeah.
My idea, this would fully be a comedy choice.
Right.
A barbarian with high intelligence whose thing is nerd rage.
Nerd rage. Oh, amazing.
Rage. Yeah.
So how would they go into nerd rage then?
They get really confused about the fact that just no one understands what they're trying to explain, and they just don't get it, and they just don't understand because they've been very, very clear, and boom.
Look, I've tried to explain it several times.
Okay, right. So Pythagoras' theorem for the last time. I think that would be amazing.
Amazing.
The biggest waste of stats, but I wouldn't care.
Hey, for a one shot, we'll do it at some point.
Well, Fiona, before we finish, is there anything you'd like to plug?
What? Oh my God, sure. So I am Fiona, as I've sort of mentioned throughout. I run the What Am I Rolling podcast, which is a twice monthly RPG one-shot podcast. It's going very well. Call of Cthulhu has been out. The lovely David has been on it, and it's been great. I've got a few others coming up. We've got another one with you and I on it. We've got 39 Dark that's going to come out in the near future.
That was a lot of fun, that one.
That was. So if you've listened to that before, we've done Mars Colony, which is like a political sci-fi thriller where I ran the game for David, and this time David runs the game for me, and other decisions are made, and I play myself essentially.
Slowly having a breakdown.
Yes, but it is a very good game if you're into your political sci-fi. If you like stuff like Gravity or anything like any of those long sci-fi films, it's better than Solaris. I'll give you that, because Solaris is a terrible film.
I hated that film.
It's an awful film. It's more exciting than that, but it's probably as long as Solaris.
Except it's a good time.
What about you, David? Do you have anything you want to plug, or any recommendations in general? Any books or TV shows you've been watching?
Well, I think someone that does need and deserve a good plug and recommendation is our DM and friend Ryan, or as his YouTube channel is, Ursa Ryan. This man has an understanding of Civ that goes beyond anything I've ever experienced, in that it will be, you know, just sort of chatting, and he's explaining how all the different things line up, and I'm just there going, okay, I don't understand any of this. I'm really not very smart. But yeah, his channel's been doing really well lately, and he's been such a good DM to us for the last 2 years.
Yeah, agreed. Whilst we are still continuing playing our game, recording it for our sakes rather than putting it on YouTube, if you want to see any of our previous Xerios campaign, it is up slightly on the Ursa Ryan channel and on the TBA Mondays channel as well. And you can see us with our baby faces. I actually got a notification the other day saying it's been 2 years since this episode, and it was episode 9 or something like that. And we look so young. You know which episode it was, David? It was the one that you were wearing sunglasses in right at the beginning.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was early on with the hags.
Oh God, that was so long ago.
That was so long ago.
We couldn't hit twigs.
Yeah.
We literally could not hit twigs.
Thank you so much for joining me, David.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for going into detail on Barbarians.
As we probably can see, we could have gone for another hour or two.
Easily. Thank you, everyone, for listening as well.
And we'll hear from you. We'll speak to you next time. That's
Brilliant.
Brilliant. Bye.
See you later.